Hi, this is Cindy Xin Radio, and this is my assignment, a short video. At first, I have to introduce the application's purpose, and I create a real-time chat room for customer, and the application satisfies its functional requirement, and application has the professional look. And I hope to introduce the application designs, and there's totally 4 pages: the index page, register pages, login pages, and chat room pages. Okay, let's first to, and this is the index pages, and there's 2 anchor elements: register and login. So let me introduce the register pages. We can register for the chat room with a new username and password, and if we successfully register, we can direct to the login pages. And I also create a database to store the username and the password. And if the username have already exists, it will show that the user already exists. For example, my username is Cindy, the password is 123. And it successfully registered and direct to the login pages. And if I register again, it will show that the user already exists. And then I have to introduce the login pages. We can enter the chat room with the username and password. If the username does not exist, it will show that the username not found. For example, if I show user 123, it will show that the username not found. And if the password is wrong, it will show that the password is incorrect. For example, the password I register is 123 and I enter 1234. It will show that the password incorrect. And if the username and password correct, it will direct it to the chat room pages. In the chat room pages. Okay. In the chat room pages, we can post a chat message, and the message is displayed together with the username and timestamp. For example, I will show that, "Hi, I am Cindy." And Linda log into the chat room, and you can see the Cindy message. And when Linda have a new post, the screen of all of the user are dynamically updated. For example, Linda said, "Hi, I am Linda." And in the Cindy pages, you can also see the Linda's message. And all the messages are stored into the database. And if the user exists and reloaded to the chat room pages, you can see all the message. For example, if the Cindy log out and then log in again, you can see the message history before. And we can leave the chat room gravely if we click the log out button. And then I have to introduce the code structure. For the client side, I use the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And for the server side, I use the Node.js with the Express.js to create a web development framework. And I use the MongoDB for the database. And I also use the Socket.io, Add Event Listener, and this technology to create my code. And I have the module folder. And the chat.js and user.js is related to the database. And I also have the view folder. The chat.pug, index.pug, login.pug, and register.pug is related to the client side, and the PUG is the templating agents, and the app.js is related to the server side. Okay, let's quit to see my code. For the chat.js, it is related to the message, and I create a chat schema to store message. The user.js, and I create a user schema to store the user information. And this is the index.pug, and it have the internal CSS. This is the login.pug, it also have the internal CSS, and I also have the action for login form using post method. And this is the register.pug, it also have the internal CSS, and it also have the action for register form using post method. The most important is the chat.pug, it have the internal CSS too, and it have the form UL, and it also have the internal JavaScript. And I use the Add Event Listener method to attach an event handler to the submit button. When people click the submit button, it will store the inputs into the data, and it will also show the inputs into the client side and emit the data to the server side. And there is something about the Socket.io. For this part, you can listening for the Socket event from the server side, and you can show the message history to the client side. And for this Socket.io, you can also listening for the Socket event from the server side, and you can receive the message from other users and show it to the client side. And the last one is the app.js. For this part, you can connect to the MongoDB. And this part is the get method route and post method route. this is the post master root. About the login pages, you can find the user from the database. If we can't find the user, it will show that the user name not found. And if the password is correct, it will redirect to the chat room pages and transfer the username. And if the password is not correct, it will show that the password incorrect. And this is the post method about the register. If the user does not exist, it will store the data to the database and register successfully. If the user exists, it will show that the user already exists. And this is the socket I/O. When people connect it, you can get the message from the database and emit when connected. And this part is listening for the socket event from the client servers and store the message to the database and broadcast to the client servers. And the last one is about start the servers and listening for the connection of the port 3000. And so this is my code review and code structure. And then I post my code to the private GitHub. And this is the GitHub. And this is the citation for some online classes about the Express node and socket I/O and something like that. And thank you for listening.